Hello folks, I just kind of made this video. I was going over this. This is 2003 R1. I see a lot of posts on the internet talking about how hard these things to start first time out of shooting a day. You know, pull it out cold, try to start it, and you wind up cranking the battery dead, and you got to recharge it. And this one's experiencing the same problem. I mean, when I first got it, you know, click the button, start right up. But then as the years went along, you know, it started to get worse and worse. And then eventually it got to the point where you could sit here and crank it all day and it would just kill the battery. You'd have to put a battery tender on it just to keep battery boosted up enough to finally get a start. Sometimes you'd hear like, you know, one cylinder in there firing. It would try to fire, but it, you know, wouldn't fire on the rest of them. So it just wouldn't turn the motor over. And then after you played with it for a little while, then eventually it started. So what I've kind of did was some testing this morning to kind of figure out what exactly is going on with this thing, because I just got tired of just having to, every time I pull it out, I got to pull the seat off, I got to put a battery tender on it, I got to run it and, you know, try starting it, see if it'll start, may not start. You know, rest of the time during the day, it's fine. You hit the button, start right up, no problem. So, you know, because it was doing that, it kind of led me to believe that there might be, you know, some kind of resistance somewhere going on the bike where, you know, once the connection gets hot enough, then it'll pass enough current to actually short out whatever's going on. So what I did was I started testing the ECU. I ran through a bunch of these connections on the ECU block in the back, testing those. A lot of the wiring came back good, you know, no opens or resistance in. Now this bike hasn't been started today, so I just kind of pulled it out and said, you know what, it's just going to be a pain in the ass this morning, so I'm just going to go through it right now. So what I did was I was doing some testing on the ground circuits, because I had an idea that this had something to do with ground resistance. There was, you know, so I stuck my meter on there and I found out that the ground here, where this is the ECU ground for all the grounds in here. I think there's a couple grounds in here kind of circling back with it. And there's also another one that's like up in here. It's below the tank. It's in there. I don't know if you can see it. You can kind of see the red wire, I think, right there. But that's what this red wire is circling down to. It's going down in there, and what this is this is a junction clip. There's a metal clip on the top. It has a black cap on it. You just pull the cap off and you can pull this out, and just pull that bridging clip out. So what I did was, when I was testing it this morning, I turned the key on, I noticed that there was about 200 ohms worth of resistance on this particular circuit, on this ground circuit that, you know, on the ground blocks underneath the tank and back here by the ECU. Now, I didn't know why it would be reading that high, because if you look at the wiring schematic, there is a dead battery ground here. So, you know, you kind of wonder, well, what's really going on here that would be driving that resistance that high? So what I did was I took and stuck this wire in there, and after I tested and got that ohm resistance, that high ohm resistance, what I did was I started putting wire in here, trying to short these blocks directly to the battery post. So that way they're in there, you know, I know it's a solid ground, you know, there's no issues there. There can't be no flow, you know, on there where I'm getting some resistance on a circuit due to a bad connector or something like that. So I ran a wire down here in the bottom for that bridging block. You can kind of see it right there. And then I ran this other wire to this one. Now I used red, but if I got to permanently put it in, I'll actually change it to black. This is 16 gauge wire. It was just something I had handy on the shelf. I just kind of grabbed. And what I did was I pulled the block out and then slid this wire in it and then kinked the end so it can't come out, and then used a pair of pliers to kind of just press it in there to make sure it's kind of in there pretty good and tight. It's not going to go nowhere. The resistance on the metal connectors will kind of keep it in place. But and I routed it directly to the ground wire here, you know, ground post of the battery here, and then terminated it with this fork lug just to kind of temporary it to see if it's going to give me any problems. Right now, after I hooked this up and I tested it again, I got the ohms down to 20 ohms. I think it's not at 200 now, it's actually at 20 ohms, which I felt pretty confident, had that circuit grounded out pretty well. And that was 20 ohms with the electric on, you know, with turning the key to on, with the fuel pump running, and you know, I had about 20 ohms on it. Once the fuel pump quit, it went right back down to like 7. So after I got that hooked up, I just pushed the button and it fired right up. I was like, unbelievable. And it even had a weak battery, because I've had the battery on and off, testing on it all morning, running the pump, you know, testing this, testing that. So the battery was even weak, and started right up, no problem. So, you know, I don't know if you guys want to try it or not. You know, so I notice there's a lot of people posting on the internet how these things start up good, and then as they progressively get older, they start having problems starting. You know, you wind up killing batteries, and, you know, can't figure out what's wrong with it. If anybody wants to try it, just run a wire from this cap. It's right by the ECU, and then run a wire from this ground cap. There's another one right here inside underneath the tank. You have to actually take the tank off to get, you know, lift the tank up to actually see it, to get to it. It's underneath there. And just stick you a piece of wire in it and ground it directly to the ground post. And then test your circuit. Put a meter on there, actually test it, turn the key on, make sure that the ohms reading is really low. You want that thing as low as you can get it. It is going to read something when the current is on it, but it shouldn't read any more than maybe 20, 30 at best. If you start getting up in the 40s, 50s, it may, you know, cause you a problem. This one was actually reading somewhere around, I think, 220 when I actually turned the fuel, you know, turned the key to on, and the fuel pump was running. I mean, 220 ohms on the ground circuit seems kind of high. So that's why I just shorted it out. And after I did this, I wheeled it outside, pushed the button, things started right up, just like it did when I first got it. And I was kind of impressed, and that was even with a weak battery. So, you know, I'm kind of anxious to see. I can't swear that this is the fix, but, you know, if anybody wants to try it out there with theirs, it's a pretty easy fix. You can actually stick this wire on here in probably about 20 minutes, you know, take the tank loose, tip it up, go up there and fix that, and then go back here to ECU, grab that one, and then route them both into a connector, put them on the ground lug, ground it out, and then test the thing to make sure that the ohms reading is down pretty far. You know, give it a shot, see if it works for you, and if it works for you, good. All right? Any questions, let me know. Thanks.